Hello and welcome to another Tech Vid. In our two-part series, I'll show you how to set up Google Workspace with Sophos Email. In this first part, I'll show you how to configure inbound email routing. Part 2 continues with the outbound routing configuration, so make sure to watch both parts if you want to set up both inbound and outbound routing in Sophos Email. As a note before we start, Sophos Email has been configured in gateway mode. In addition, I'll use a third-party DNS to validate and configure any required records. I'll first show how to add and verify your domain. Next, I'll show you how to add mailboxes. Then, I'll walk you through the steps for updating your MX records and configuring inbound routing through Sophos Email. In addition, I'll provide some troubleshooting tips if your mail flow isn't working properly. Before you begin, you need licenses for each mailbox that will send and receive email. You also need super admin rights in both Sophos Central and Google Workspace. And if you manage your DNS records from a third party other than Google, you'll need the necessary permissions to edit DNS records. Let's get started. To begin, add your domain to Sophos Email to validate it. Go to General Settings, Domain Settings or Status. Click Add Domain. Enter your domain name and click Verify Domain Ownership. Copy the TXT value. Now go to your DNS provider, select your domain and enter a new TXT record. Paste the value and set the time to leave as needed. Once this is done, return to Sophos Central and click Verify Domain. Note, domain verification may take some time to complete as the new TXT record needs to be propagated by your provider. If you receive an error message, let some time pass and then try verifying again. When the record has updated, you'll receive a message indicating a successful domain verification. Next, set the direction. I'll choose inbound and outbound, but if you plan to configure inbound only, select that option instead. For inbound destination, select MX. Under MX, enter routing-MX and your domain name. For port, enter 25. For outbound gateway, select Google Apps Gmail. We recommend you leave the default options selected, but you can modify according to your organization's policies. And note, the outbound gateway selection is not an option if you're configuring inbound only. Finally, click Save. Let's move on. For Sophos Email to process inbound and outbound emails, it must know all the mailboxes that will be receiving and sending emails, including aliases and distribution lists. It's critical that synchronization of your mailboxes is done before updating your MX records and inbound routing. To facilitate the sync of all your users and mailboxes from Google Workspace, refer to our Google Directory Sync resource linked in the description. In this tech vid, I'll demonstrate by adding a single mailbox. To do this, go to My Products, Email Protection, Mailboxes, Add Mailbox. In Mailbox type, select User. Enter the name of the user and the email address. Ensure the spelling is correct. Then click Save. Once done, you can see the newly created user mailbox under the Mailbox menu. Next, create a new MX record to route inbound email to Google. This is different from configuring the MX records for mail delivery, as these records are used for the delivery destination configured within Sophos Email. If you already have an MX record for your domain, make sure you don't remove this yet, as doing so will disrupt your email routing. This will be removed as the last step in this section. When adding the new MX record, we recommend using routing-MX as the subdomain, so enter this as the hostname. The specific record details may differ depending on when you signed up for Google Workspace. To determine which ones to use, refer to the documentation linked in the description. In this example, I signed up for Google Workspace after 2023, so my destination is smtp.google.com. The next step is to change your MX records to point to Sophos Email. Only do this once you're ready to start sending email through Sophos and all mailboxes are synchronized. Carefully enter the information to ensure that the spelling and numbers are correct. Using MX record names other than those provided prevents mail from flowing correctly. When changing DNS entries like MX records, we recommend lowering the time to leave well in advance of updating the entries. Setting them to 600 seconds or less is appropriate. To find the MX record for your domain, in Sophos Central, go to My Products, Email Protection, Settings, Domain Settings or Status, configure external dependencies. In the Inbound Settings tab, the MX records are listed. Note these values. Then add them to your DNS provider. Once again, make sure to enter the correct MX records for your region and set the correct weight. If you can't make these changes yourself, contact your IT department, hosting provider, internet service provider, or DNS provider and arrange for your domain's MX records to be modified. Finally, remove any old entries for your domain that point to your previous email provider. Next, create an inbound gateway in Google Workspace to restrict the delivery of inbound emails to your domain from Sophos email only. To do this, sign into your Google Admin Console. Go to Apps, Google Workspace, Gmail. Then scroll down to Spam, Phishing and Malware. Make sure you select your organization unit on the left. Now edit the inbound gateway. Select Enable and under Gateway IPs, click Add. In Add IP address or range, enter the Sophos gateway IP addresses that correspond to your region. You can find them in Sophos Central. Go to My Products, Email Protection, Settings, Domain Settings or Status, Configure External Dependencies. In the Inbound Settings tab, the Sophos delivery IPs are shown. Make sure to enter all the IPs. Failing to do so will cause email delivery issues. Optionally, you can add the IP addresses for Google servers. There are reported instances where Google may block its own IP addresses. To find Google's current list of IP addresses, refer to the documentation in the description. Next, select Automatically Detect External IP, reject all mail knock from gateway IPs, and require TLS for connection from the email gateways listed above. Then, click Save. Keep in mind, if you purchased your domain from Google, you must set up custom records, as you can't edit the default DNS records that Google provides. Once again, refer to the linked documentation for steps to do this. At this point, all inbound email is now routed to Sophos email and then to Google Workspace. Next, you need to create a routing rule in Google Workspace to direct internal messages to Google servers instead. In your Google Admin Console, go to Apps, Google Workspace, Gmail, Hosts. Click Add Routes. Enter a route name to help you remember the routes. For example, internal messages. Select multiple hosts. Then enter the primary host details. The host name is aspmx.l.google.com. Port is 25 and load is 100%. Next, click Add Secondary and enter the secondary host details. The host name is all1.aspmx.l.google.com. Once again, the port is 25 and load is 100%. Make sure all the boxes under Options are selected, then click Save. Now go back to Gmail and scroll down to Routing. If you haven't configured a rule yet, click Configure. However, if you have, you click Add another rule instead. Enter a name for the routing setting, for example, Internal Emails Route Rule. In email messages to a Fed, select Internal Sending. In Step 2, select Modify Message from the drop-down list, select Change Route, and change the route to internal messages. Click Show Options and make sure user and group account types are selected. Under Option C, Envelope Filter, select only FX-specific envelope senders. Select Pattern Match from the drop-down list and enter your domain in the Regex field. Click Save. At this point, you can test the inbound email routing by sending an email to a mailbox protected by Sophos email. To confirm the email went through Sophos, sign into Sophos Central and go to My Products, Email Protection, Reports, Message History. If messages are correctly flowing through the system, you'll see entries in this report. If mail isn't flowing and you aren't receiving email in your test inbox, or you're receiving emails but not seeing them in Sophos email, you can verify the following. Check that your MX records are correct for your region. Verify that you set up the Sophos delivery IPs correctly in your gateway, firewall, or connector. And confirm that the mailbox you're sending to exists in Sophos email security. At this point, your inbound email is now being routed to Sophos email. I hope you found this useful. If you wish to set up outbound routing as well, proceed to part 2 of this series. The tech read is linked in the description. Check out the documentation for this tech read in the description. For further assistance, view and post questions on the Sophos community. And go to Sophos TechBits for more helpful videos like this one.